So, those moments at work, where like you feel a little guilty about something? Like
Mm.
maybe you're pushing a teammate a little too hard, or maybe you feel like you're not speaking up enough in meetings or
Oh,
something.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of questions about this whole idea of guilt in the workplace. It seems like it's a really common experience.
Absolutely.
And we found this really interesting article by an organizational consultant, Dikla Erez. She's done some fascinating work on this topic.
I've read her stuff. It's really insightful.
Yeah, she goes deep into like the psychology of guilt in the workplace, where it comes from, how it impacts us, and even what we can do about it.
Sounds like a perfect topic for a deep dive.
It totally is. And one of the coolest things she brings up is this connection to Patrick Lencioni's working genius model. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yeah. Lencioni's work is great. He's got some really interesting ideas about how different people naturally excel in different areas.
Yeah. Exactly. So basically, Ares takes this model and uses it to explain like why different types of people might experience guilt in different ways at work.
I'm intrigued. Let's unpack that.
Okay, so first things first, can you give us a quick overview of the working genius model itself?
Sure. So Lencioni basically says that everyone has these innate talents, these geniuses, if you will.
Okay.
And he breaks them down into two main categories. You've got your talents that respond to the world and your talents that generate a response in the world.
Interesting. So like two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And within each of those categories, there are three specific talents. So on the responding side, you've got wonder,
Okay.
which is all about curiosity. So I have like always asking why and wanting to understand things deeply.
Right, the folks who are always digging deeper, always asking questions.
Then you've got discernment, which is the ability to analyze things carefully, to kind of see the strengths and weaknesses of a situation.
So like the critical thinkers, the ones who can really weigh things out.
Exactly. And then there's enablement, which is all about supporting others, empowering them, and helping them to succeed.
Ah, so like the team players, the ones who make everyone around them better.
Precisely. So those are your talents that respond to the world, folks.
Gotcha. And what about the other side, the generators?
All right. So for those who generate a response in the world, you've got invention, first up. These are the creative types, the innovators, always coming up with new ideas.
The idea people, the ones who can just like think outside the box.
Exactly. Then there's galvanize, which is all about inspiring and motivating others to take action.
Ah, so like the leaders, the ones who can rally the troops.
Exactly. They get things moving. And then finally, you've got tenacity, which is all about perseverance and seeing things through to the end.
Okay, the ones who just don't give up, the finishers.
Exactly. So you've got your responders and your generators, 6 talents in total.
Okay, so this framework makes total sense, but where does the guilt come in?
Right. So here's where it gets really interesting. And this is where Era's work is just brilliant. She points out that we tend to think of guilt as something that primarily affects people who are more on the responding side of things.
Yeah, like the ones who maybe feel like they're not doing enough or not being proactive enough.
Exactly. But Eras argues, and I think she's spot on, that guilt can actually be just as prevalent, if not more so, for those who are on the generating side of things.
Really? So the inventors, the galvanizers, the tenacious ones, they can feel guilty too.
Absolutely. And she gives some really compelling examples of why this might be.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
So let's think about someone with a strong galvanized talent.
The ones who are all about inspiring and motivating others.
Exactly. They might feel guilty because their drive to get things done might come across as pushy or demanding.
Right, or they're putting too much pressure on their team or something.
Exactly. Or someone with a strong invention talent, they might feel guilty because their constant flow of new ideas disrupts the status quo.
I see, like they're shaking things up too much, making people uncomfortable.
Precisely. And Eras even gives this great example of a project manager who's super tenacious.
So like one of those get-it-done types who never gives up.
Yeah, but this project manager is constantly feeling guilty because they're worried about pushing their team too hard to meet deadlines. They're like, am I demanding too much? Am I harming the team's morale?
Wow, that's so relatable. I think a lot of people in leadership positions probably struggle with that. It's tough to find that balance between driving results and maintaining positive relationships.
It really is. And Eraz's point is that these feelings of guilt can be just as intense and just as debilitating for the generators as they are for the responders.
That makes a lot of sense, and it kind of flips the script on how we usually think about guilt in the workplace.
It does, and it just highlights how complex these emotions can be.
Okay, so we've talked about the generators. Let's dive into the guilt that the responders might experience.
All right, so for the folks who are strong in wonder, discernment, and enablement, Erez suggests that they might feel guilty about being perceived as less passionate about their work.
Interesting. So, like, they're not showing enough enthusiasm.
Exactly. Or they might feel like they're not as driven towards achieving the organization's goals.
Like, they're not as ambitious as their colleagues.
Precisely. And this can be especially tough in workplaces that really value outward displays of, like go-getter energy.
Right, right. Those super high energy, always on the go type of places.
Yeah, and the responders, they might feel like they just don't fit in. They might feel guilty for being more introverted or thoughtful.
And I bet they feel guilty about not contributing as many, like, tangible ideas or solutions.
Oh, absolutely. Erez talks about this. She gives this example of a team member who's amazing at listening, analyzing, and evaluating.
So, like, they're really good at processing information and forming thoughtful opinions.
Exactly. But during brainstorming sessions, they struggle because they don't come up with ideas as quickly as their more extroverted colleagues.
Right, they need a little more time to process and think things through.
Yeah, and they start to feel guilty. They start to think, maybe I'm not committed enough to this project, or maybe I'm just not as creative as everyone else.
It's like they're comparing themselves to a standard that doesn't really fit their natural strengths.
Exactly. And Erez even touches on Lencioni's concept of the distractive type, which can sometimes be associated with introversion.
Right, like the people who are more internally focused, more reflective.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Erez argues, and I totally agree, that this whole idea of extroverts being the generators and introverts being the responders is way too simplistic.
I mean, it makes sense at first glance, but there's so much more nuance to it, right?
Absolutely. Like, take, for example, that introverted programmer that Erez talks about.
The one who saves the day by spotting that critical bug.
Exactly. He might be quiet during most of the meeting, but his one insightful comment ends up generating a huge positive impact.
And on the flip side, you could have an extroverted manager who's really good at listening and making sure everyone feels heard.
Right. So their extroversion actually helps them to be more responsive and supportive.
It's all about recognizing that different personalities and different talents can contribute in different ways.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've talked about the sources of guilt for both the generators and the responders, but what can we actually do about it? Like, how can we reduce this guilt in the workplace? Erez has some really practical recommendations, right?
She does, particularly for organizational consultants. But honestly, these are really valuable for anyone who wants to create a more positive and productive work environment.
Right, because at the end of the day, we all want to feel good about the work we do and feel valued for our contributions.
Absolutely. So Erez outlines 4 key strategies.
Lay them on me.
First up, identify and value personal strengths.
Okay, so like helping people understand what they're naturally good at.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone has unique talents and that those talents are all valuable regardless of whether they fall more on the generating side or the responding side.
Right, so it's not about trying to fit everyone into the same mold.
Exactly. It's about celebrating diversity and appreciating what each person brings to the table.
Makes sense. What's next?
Create legitimacy for diverse working styles.
So basically making it clear that there's more than one right way to work.
Precisely. It's about fostering a culture that values different approaches and recognizes that both the generators and the responders are essential for success.
I love that it's about creating a truly inclusive environment.
It is, and it's so important for reducing guilt. Because when people feel like their natural way of working is accepted and valued, they're less likely to feel like they need to be someone they're not.
Gotcha. Okay, what's the third strategy?
Develop communication skills.
Oh, that's huge, especially in the workplace.
It is, and Erez specifically talks about helping people articulate their unique value to the organization and their team.
So like being able to explain how their strengths contribute to the bigger picture.
Exactly, because when people can confidently communicate their value, they're less likely to feel guilty about the things they don't do as well.
Right? It's about owning your strengths and not letting your perceived weaknesses define you.
Precisely. And the final strategy,
Hit me.
build support systems.
Okay, so creating an environment where people feel comfortable talking about their struggles and getting support from others.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture where guilt isn't something that people have to deal with alone.
I love that because it's so true. It's so much easier to deal with these feelings when you know you're not alone.
It is. And Erez actually shares a great example of how all of these strategies can come together in a real workplace setting.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
So she talks about this organizational consultant who was working with a finance-focused startup.
Okay.
And there was this product manager who was constantly feeling guilty because they felt like they were bothering the developers with all their questions about progress and timelines.
Oh, I can see that happening, especially in a fast-paced startup environment.
Yeah, but the thing is, the product manager's questions were actually really important for keeping the project on track.
So it's like their natural wonder talent was actually crucial for the project's success.
Exactly. So the consultant worked with the product manager to help them understand the value of their questions and to reframe their role as being essential for communication and alignment.
Okay, so helping them to see their strengths and not feel guilty about them.
Exactly. And at the same time, the consultant worked with the development team to help them understand why the product manager's questions were so important.
So it was about bridging that communication gap and creating a more collaborative environment.
Precisely. And the result was that the product manager felt less guilty, the development team felt more understood, and the project as a whole benefited from the improved communication.
That's such a great example of how addressing these feelings of guilt can really lead to positive outcomes for everyone.
It really does, and it all comes back to ERA's central question, which is how can organizations create an environment where employees feel empowered to fully express themselves while simultaneously minimizing those feelings of guilt? Such a great question, and based on everything we've discussed, it sounds like the key is to create a workplace where different talents are recognized and valued, where communication is open and honest, and where people feel supported in bringing their whole selves to work.
Exactly. And Urs even gives this amazing example of a company that totally revamped their meeting structure to be more inclusive of different working styles.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
So they started sending out discussion topics in advance so that people who need more time to process information could come prepared.
That's so smart. It levels the playing field for the responders who might not be as quick on their feet in the moment.
Exactly. And they also started incorporating short periods of individual reflection time during the meetings.
So like giving everyone a chance to gather their thoughts and formulate their ideas.
Precisely. And they even offered different ways for people to express their opinions, like verbally in writing or in smaller groups.
Wow, so they really went all out in creating a more inclusive and flexible environment. They did, and the result was that they got a much wider range of ideas and perspectives, and people who had previously felt guilty about not contributing enough suddenly felt much more comfortable and engaged.
That's incredible. It's like a win-win for everyone.
It really is.
So to wrap things up, this deep dive into Dikla Erez's work has been so eye-opening. It's really made me rethink how I view guilt in the workplace.
Me too. It's so much more nuanced than we often give it credit for.
And it really highlights the importance of understanding our own working genius and the working genius of those around us.
Absolutely, because when we can appreciate and leverage those different strengths, we can create a much more harmonious and productive work environment.
And for you, our listener, we want to leave you with this question. What are some of the subtle cues or unspoken expectations in your own workplace that might be triggering feelings of guilt, either in you or in your colleagues?
It's worth reflecting on because sometimes those subtle things can have a big impact on how we feel about our work and how we interact with each other.
And if you're interested in learning more about how to apply these ideas in your own workplace, Dikla Erez actually provides a ton of specific questions that you can ask yourself and your team members to help everyone tap into their working genius and reduce those feelings of guilt.
It's definitely worth checking out her work if you want to dive deeper into this topic.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate, all of these brilliant insights come from the amazing Dikla Erez, an organizational consultant who's really doing some groundbreaking work in this area.
Her work is truly insightful.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.